Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here, once again with the main man himself, Michelangelo. Michael, how we feeling?
We're feeling we're feeling all right is how we're
That's
feeling.
wow. The fact you just hesitated, I think you didn't even.
There's
This
some
isn't.
things to be happy about. There's some things to not be happy about.
Yeah, I would have to. I would say so. Yeah. So let's just get into the. We'll call this the brief discussions. We'll call it like the quick hitters. So yeah, MB's
Mhm.
face is broken, which if you want to know how cursed the Sixers have been so far to start the season, I mean that's pretty
Yeah,
much.
it's just and we're reaching such a low at this point with the fan base that he gets hit in the face, he's called soft. He doesn't come back in the game, called soft. Now reported that he does have in fact a broken face. He broke his face, and all players that have had like this sort of broken face, like a sinus fracture, they've all missed about 10 to 14 days and then they come back with a mask. And still, even though after the news, he's still being called soft for it. So,
I
we're,
think
we're, we're at a point that no one
if
cares
you
about
look
him at
at,
all.
I do think it's funny that, or funny, but rather sad that he's like a lot of the casual fans slash like I would say people that are maybe not the primary team they watch as the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think they feel like if they just trade Embiid, that all the problems are going to be fixed. And listen, if you want to
Which is
trade
not
Embiid
true.
because he's older and you want to get value and you want to like rebuild like that, I respect that opinion. I do. But if you're like, if we just trade Embiid, we can finally make the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, that's not happening.
that's highly
We've
unrealistic.
we've watched a He's been on this team for like a decade. He's been playing for about 8 years now. And we see consistently how awful they are through various groups of players when he doesn't play. And this year was no different. If anything, this year was the worst. He wasn't playing, and they were one of the worst teams in basketball. So, I just think that um, everyone's clearly frustrated and everyone's, I guess, over it at this point. Just to say trade him, it's not so easy. He just signed the extension. Like, you wouldn't be able to do it until the off season. And then when you do that, like you said, they're not going to be all of a sudden contenders or something like that. Like, it's not, they're not trading him and getting better right now. Like, that's just not going to happen for so many reasons that it almost isn't even worth talking about. But unfortunately, yes, he did break his face, and also Jared McCain fell and hit his head and like came back, but there's just no way he doesn't have a concussion. I don't know what protocol he cleared, but he came back and he like bricked a layup and then airballed a three. So you tell me if Jared McCain, after smashing the back of his head on the court, is fine. I would not be surprised if he reports symptoms today and they say he has concussion. So
Yeah.
everything sucks with them, unfortunately.
Yes. Uh, Moving on to the Flyers. Scott Long had 4 goals in a game the other night.
I was there. It was awesome. I sat behind. I had the very fortunate opportunity of sitting right behind the Detroit Red Wings bench. Shout out Nick and his father for having the connections to get those seats. I've sat in those seats before. Last year, once against the Devils, and the other day against the Red Wings. It was really cool. I was about as close as I probably will ever be to Patrick Kane, and I will forever hate him. Um, yeah, God. And it was really cool, though. I lost my hat, but for a cool reason. Dylan Larkin of the Detroit Red Wings slapped my hat with his stick in frustration after Lawton scored the hat trick empty net goal. It was a really cool game to be at, and then he scored his fourth. I wonder. Is Scott Lawton the worst player to score 4 goals in a game? Not anything against Scott Lawton, just like it's not easy to score 4 goals in a game. I can't imagine, you know, the players that are doing it is
He's
everyone's
going to
fourth
be an
liner.
answer to a trivia question when someone's
Like
like, you're going to look at that
maybe.
year, and I think the Flyer, like 15, 20 years from now, people are going to assume it's Michkov.
I mean, he
When
went
it's,
from 3 goals to 7 goals, and he's your fourth liner that plays on the penalty kill, and he got 4 goals in a game. Like that's just really difficult to kind of even fathom. That you even your fourth line even musters 4 scoring chances in a game. I get it, 2 are empty net, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's just I don't think it's happened so often that a fourth
Shout
liner
out
scores
to
four
Garnet
goals.
Hathaway, who Lawton tried to give him the empty netter at
Yeah,
the end, and
he
then he
gave
was
it
like,
back.
"Nah, dude, get 4 goals."
Yeah, Flyers are fun-ish. Like it's fun sometimes. It's very frustrating other times. But like, you watch Michkov enough, it's a good time. The goaltending situation is like interesting and kind of fun at this point. Like, I'm happy that Tortorella laid out that Alexei Kolosov is the backup, and then Ivan Fedotov is the third goalie, which is tough because they can't send him down to the minors because they gave him that contract. So he would have to clear waivers in order to get down to the AHL. So I do think they're going to trade one of them, and I definitely do not think it's going to be Kolosov because I think that would just be Bobrovsky all over again.
No, I think
Um,
they're going to try and trade Airson because he's the most experienced. And
yeah, I think you could get the most out of Erson as well, like at this point right now. And I do think Fedotov as like a backup would be pretty nice. And he clearly like early in the season he was atrocious, like unplayable bad. But he's clearly settled in pretty nicely, and he's still a backup quality goaltender. Maybe not even that yet, but he's going to definitely grow into that nicely. And I think Kolosov is legit. He's got that quickness and like cat like movement that you see the elite goaltenders kind of have. Like if you remember just Jonathan Quick, watching how he would play, or even Fleury or Vasilevsky, like you look at those guys that aren't necessarily the biggest guys, but their anticipation and their quickness and their like twitchiness, if you will, to be able to throw their body in all these sort of spots. It's truly something. Uh, that it's a short list of the elite goalies that have that sort of thing, and you see a lot of the flashes now, and it gets you excited. And even against Detroit, he made some huge saves that was matching what Cam Talbot was doing on the other end. That any other day that's a rough day or a different goalie and doesn't make those saves, you're playing a game that you feel like you should be dominating, and you could easily have been down like 2-1, 3-1 at one point if it weren't for Kolosov. So shout out him as well.
and I think that wraps up the quick hitters. I think we need to jump into a lot of the news that happened when in baseball. So
Baseball, the stove is
so
hot.
what do you want to jump into first? You want to jump into the Mets
Yeah,
making the
let's start with the big one. So Juan Soto signed officially for a 15-year, and it's written as $765 million. And
actually it's most likely if he doesn't opt out, it's going to be worth over $800 million with the
yeah,
escalators built into the contract.
it's like 5 for 255, and then there's an opt out that if he opts, it's like if he opts back into the contract, he gets the raise. He gets the raise to 15 years, 805 million total. And then it lands at 765 in the event that like he just doesn't opt out and then opt back in. It's like it's very semantically based where if he, let's say he gets hurt or something like that, he would just kind of stick through the contract and get 15,765, or if something, catastrophic like that happened. But in all likelihood, he'll play out 5,255, and then he'll opt out and opt back in to get the raise to 15,805. And, you know, biggest contract in sports history. Is it overpaying him? Like, yeah, but when you have a talent as good as he is, modern day Pujols or Bonds, whatever you want to call it, it's one of those things where you have a talent like that that's so big and so good and is like should really age well. Um, you got to overpay. And there's a pretty good quote from Andrew Friedman, the Dodgers GM from back in 2016. And it basically says, if you think about every free agent logically, you will finish third on every free agent. And it's true. Like, there's going to be teams bidding for any sort of premier free agent, and it's always usually gets down to, okay, there's 3 teams left, 4 teams left, and one or two of those teams are like, you know what, we're going too high here. He's not worth that money. Like they say, like the Red Sox, for example, fake big market because they don't like to spend their money, and we know this because we see Mookie Betts and we see other players of the sorts. But look at the Boston Red Sox. They took a step back when they were at about 700 million, and we're like, is he really worth up to 750, maybe even more $1 million? No, probably not. So we're out. And it's like, okay, logically, you think that, and that's probably fair. But now you're not going to get Juan Soto. Like, you're going to finish third. Then the Yankees and Mets, back and forth. Yankees kind of set themselves stop at 760. And the Mets were always going to pay more, and the Yankees didn't feel like trying to push their luck with that. I do think the Yankees probably could have milked more from the Mets. Like, what I think the Yankees should have done, if they really want to keep Soto, I think when they were in this bidding war, they should have jumped up to 800, like 15,800, and just call it that from like the 760. Like, let's go way up and make the Mets overpay. Make the Mets jump up ahead of you. And if the Mets jump up ahead of you past 800, then it's like, okay, you got it. But I think when you're kind of in this bidding war and you let yourself get out inched by Steve Cohen because you're both going like this and you just eventually stop instead of jumping and making the Mets go up here, I don't know. I feel like you could have done a little bit more to bully the Mets out of it, or bully the Mets into spending a little bit more money. But
I
instead,
think the Mets were kind of bidding against themselves. I don't think the Yankees realistically were 100% committed to bringing Juan Soto back, especially when you consider how fast they made their moves once Juan Soto signed with the Mets, signing Max Fried to the
they
largest
definitely had
contract
plans.
by a left-handed pitcher, acquiring Devin Williams from the Milwaukee Brewers, sending Nestor Cortez to Milwaukee in the trade. So they replaced Nestor with Max Fried, and they get Devin Williams out of it. And I would
They
imagine,
replaced Clay Holmes in that regard, sort
and
of.
replacing Clay Holmes, who stinks.
Well,
So,
we'll see. We'll see how the Mets. They're going to turn him into a
um,
starter, so we'll see how
yeah,
that.
I do. So I do think that the Yankees, the fact they're Plan B, they moved so quickly with Plan B, tells me that I think they knew probably right around near the end of the year that he
They're gonna
was he wanted to test his market, and I think he just wanted to be a Met. I think because one, Steve Cohen was just hell bent on bringing in Juan Soto. I mean, so we look at Steve Cohen since he became the owner of the Mets. All they talked about how he was just going to spend ridiculous amounts of money, and he has. But when you look at the signings he's made, Michael, he's never really made that big like wow signing. Like signing like old Max Scherzer to me, that's not a wow signing.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think what's unfortunate from like a hater of the Mets perspective is that he's just going to keep spending money. He's just going to keep trying. And what they like when they did Scherzer and Verlander, and they both got a lot of money from the Mets. That was like their first iteration of like, all right, let's push here. And they made the playoffs. They won 100 games and they lost early to San Diego. It took like a year and a half or so to kind of reset everything. And now it's like, okay, we're going to go all in for Juan Soto. And it's like, I still do think they're going to keep Pete Alonso. And I do think that there's
I
more.
don't see. At first, I thought it was pretty much a lock that he was just going to stay with the Mets, but the fact that
It's taken so long.
well, it's taking so long, and like the way I mean, Pete Alonso, like, listen, let's just be purely objective here. I'm being
Player.
100% objective, not a fan of the Phillies when I talk about this. Uh, he was been the face of their. He was kind of like their Reese Hoskins. Is he better than Reese?
Absolutely the
Yes,
read.
yes,
Yes.
yes. But do you think it's possible that because they just they've been negotiating with Pete Alonso for a while, and the fact that they just made Juan Soto the highest paid player in baseball history, zero deferrals. This is the new version of the Alex Rodriguez to the Texas Rangers contract, in my
Hmm.
opinion, because Otani's contract is a bit of a fugazi because of the all the deferrals
Yeah,
and
it's a Pujols to the Angels. Like it's
yeah,
that sort
it's
of
like a
thing.
30-year contract, but he's only going to play in 10 of them, is what
Right.
it basically
Right.
is,
The
right?
Dodger one, yeah.
Right. That's the Dodger one. This is the like we're going to pay Juan Soto significantly more than any other star player in a way shorter period, right?
Hmm.
And I just think if you're Pete Alonso, like if you're his agent, and maybe like he might feel like, well, I guess I'm not that, I played in New York. I played through all the bad times, tried to be the face of the franchise. And now all of a sudden, like, Juan Soto just shows up
I
and
mean, Boris is his agent. Like he's a Boris guy. Like if he, I don't disagree, and I think it depends because I do really think that Pete Alonso wants to stay. Like he's the guy. He loves the Mets. He wants to stay as much as Reese wanted to stay, and the Phillies just straight up did not offer Reese a contract. They knew it was like it was time. The plan was Bryce at first base. There was no place for Reese Hoskins on this team anymore. If there were, they would have kept him, I think, for certain. There is absolutely a massive place for Pete Alonso to stay with the Mets. And I really think it would behoove them to keep him. Like if they don't keep Pete Alonso, they've been showing the projected lineups now. And like it's again, like it's not that inspiring at the moment. Obviously, Lindor and Soto is ridiculous. And like Lindor, Soto, Vientos is really good. Lindor, Soto, Vientos, Nimmo is very, very good. But you insert Pete Alonso in there, it gets so much better. Um, and I would he give him a little hometown discount? Like I do think Alonso would. It really depends, I guess, if Boris is trying to milk as much as he can out of Steve and get more from the Mets, really play up that, oh, the A's are involved and the Yankees are involved and the Phillies have checked in. Like maybe that is all just to try to bump up the price tag of the Mets, but deep down they both know that he's just going back there. That's kind of what I think's happening. Um, but I just think Cohen's going to keep spending, and like there's a reason that the Mets unleashed some $8 billion plan or whatever it is for like to essentially build a park around City Field and print more money in that regard. And you know that is because he wants to put a lot of money into the Mets, and he wants more money coming in. It's not some philanthropy act that he's spending a lot of money on the Mets. Like he's still he's a billionaire. He's going to make his money. Um, and I think that Alonso, keeping him is their next sort of
I
I
just
think gonna be the
you
next
mentioned that
priority.
you mentioned pool holes like two or three times, not to shift
Oh yeah.
the topic. Do you listen? I think we both of us recognize how great Juan Soto is as a hitter. Um, Is he going to reach his full potential? Like that's the thing, because I have his baseball reference pulled up. Now, he's been playing since 2018. And look, he was a runner up for rookie of the year, only played in 116 games. But if you look at his wins above replacement, last year was easily his best year of his career, playing in that short right field porch in Yankee Stadium. I think we both knew he was going to probably set a career high in home runs, which he did,
Yeah,
right?
it was 40
He was going to walk a ton because he was going to be batting
in front of or
in front
behind
of
Aaron
Aaron
Judge.
Judge,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And he's
just
obviously has a great eye for the
he's
plate.
yeah.
But, Michael, I said this to people like who I'm friends with, or people that like I work with who are very knowledgeable of baseball. I'm like, there's only one player that of the Soto contract, there is only one player in baseball right now that is worthy of a contract like that. It's Shohei Ohtani.
No, yeah, because you look at like the whole reasoning behind Otani getting 700 million, and it was like because he pitches and hits. It was like paying for two players in one. It was, we're paying him 350 million to be a pitcher and 350 million to be a hitter, and like
Well, Michael,
that was the logic
this
behind it.
past season as a hitter
Yeah, and
was
like
it?
listen, when he pitches again, he's going to become a worse hitter, not a bad hitter, but just not like the best hitter in
Yeah, but
baseball.
like I think my point is like this is the thing with Soto. Soto is an atrocious fielder. He's
He's
a
not
little
great. Yeah.
he's atrocious. He's getting he looks like he's put on weight, which I'm not. Listen,
I don't know.
I'm
That
not
could
trying to
just
be
be
a dick. I'm just saying like he's probably gonna DH is most of that his career, right? Which
yeah.
is fine. It's totally fine, right? But like, dude, like A-Rod got the monster contract in 2000 because he was a Gold Glove caliber shortstop.
Right.
Ken Griffey Jr. was a great all-around player. Like the thing with Soto is going to be his bat. And I just how New York, especially Mets fans with their like they have like the red-headed stepchild mentality of
Yes.
like we're inferior. They know they're inferior to the Yankees,
Well, they,
Michael.
they think this is putting them at least equal plane. Like they're like we out pitched
Sure.
the Yankees for the best free agent, and like listen, I would be pretty happy about that too.
But you
Like
had to pay him more than the Yankees were willing to pay him. Like it's not like he. See, here's the difference
that's my point
between.
because the Yankees always do that to everybody else. They always pay everybody more than what they're willing to pay. They're the ones that have the unlimited, bank account that they always steal all the players because they just have all the money to throw at it. So the Mets are going to take their little victory lap of like, you know
Oh,
what?
of course. But I think
F up
this is my
yours,
point, and this is where
pal.
like I'm wary of Juan Soto with the Mets a little bit. Is this if Juan Soto's priority was winning multiple championships, and look, he's already won a World
He's already
Series in
won one,
2019.
so you really can't sell him on that almost because he
Well,
has won one
like
on a freaking garbage franchise. Like he was a humongous reason a brutal franchise has a World Series now.
yeah, but I feel, but
Isn't that like that is a lot there? I don't know.
yeah,
The
but like
Nationals
yeah,
do. Ugh.
I don't think he thinks like that. I think it's like this is kind of where I was surprised. I thought he was going to be a Dodger. I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be like Kevin Durant going to the Splash Brothers.
Yeah, it was gonna be like and the Dodgers had an opportunity. I just don't think they were in for,
I think they
not
just
deferring
probably
the
did
money.
not.
Like I honestly I think it was that. It was the lack of being able to defer the money that he
You
didn't
name me
want.
a better trio in baseball history if all playing on the same team at the same time, all in the primes of their careers. Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani. That's literally a combined wins above replacement of like 30.
Yeah, it's
That's insane.
it
And
is
like
insane.
and they probably would win. Like think about it, you wouldn't just win one World Series. They probably would have win like four together.
No, and it's yeah, and it would have been again, I think the defer if he was willing to take some deferred money, I think the Dodgers would have been a little more involved. But we know he wasn't taking deferred money.
So, and I guess like my point is,
Winning is definitely not the top
my point is, if
priority for
he's
him.
pure, like I feel like these free agents when they're just purely financially motivated, like just money, more often than not, it doesn't go well.
I do think that I'll say this, there's a baseline for where he wanted to go in terms of competitiveness. He wasn't like Michael Kay was bitching and moaning on whatever, saying if the Marlins mustered up 850 million, he would have went to Miami. And it's like, I
Probably.
I don't know, man. Like 850, yeah, if you blow every team out of the water with your money. I think there was a baseline of a team needing to be competitive enough. And like the Mets slash Red Sox slash like I guess Blue Jays are probably like the worst teams that he would have went to. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't going to the White Sox if they found out for the cash for it. He wasn't going even the A's that weren't even that bad. He's not going to the A's to play there. He wasn't going to just he wasn't going back to Washington for sure. Like he wasn't going to teams that have no chance of winning at all. Like he was going to a team that was going to be competitive in the near future, if not already. And I like competitive enough. He wasn't going to the Angels. You know, he was Mets, Dodgers, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Phillies, like all Yankees, competitive teams. And I think it's not the number one priority, the will to win, because obviously that would have changed some negotiations. Obviously, money was the primary driver. But again, I don't think he would have gone to the Marlins per se if the Marlins offered him the most money.
I
And
mean,
it's interesting, and I do
yeah,
think
but that's the
he in
thing, though. All these
particular,
awful. There's the thing, though, Michael. Like all these awful teams, they just don't spend money. I mean, Corey
yeah,
Seager left the Dodgers to
the
go to the
Rangers were spending
Rangers
money,
because, well, Michael,
and they won.
the Rangers lost like 99 games or something before they signed Seager. Though it's not like
It was Seager and Semyon. It was like they had $1 billion off season. Like
well,
it was no
okay. So if
joke.
the Marlins were like, I mean,
If the Marlins told Juan Soto, "Hey, we're
I
going to
feel
give
like when you're
you,"
going, I feel like when you're going bonanza in free agency and baseball, when you got money to spend, it's like in for a penny, in for a pound.
like
Like
if the Marlins told him, "We're going to give you 800 million, and we're also going to give
Corbin
Bregman,"
Burns,
or
three
yeah, we're
hundred
going to give
million.
Corbin Burns 250 million, and we're going to give Bregman 200 million, and we're also inquiring about Kyle Tucker. What do you say, Juan? I think maybe he would have been like, "Oh, you know what? Like that doesn't sound too bad."
Hmm.
But
Well, no,
it's not like Anthony Rendon.
well, if the Marlins, who play in a state that does not have state income tax, offered him 850 million, Scott Boras would probably grab Juan Soto's hand and force him to sign the
Well, I think
contract.
he would have said, "Steve, let's get up to 860, buddy. Like
He's gonna be
let's get
like
a little."
Steve. He's gonna be like Steve. Juan is gonna save like
How does 900 million sound?
$90 million in state income tax from this Marlins contract. You got to give him 900 million now to
And
cover it.
Steve would have done it.
That's what I'm
So
saying. Well, okay, that's
I
fine.
think
But
that
now it's
I
like,
think
but now we're getting into like Jesus. Like at one
no,
point,
I know. I don't just I get it. But listen, he didn't sign for that. You look at someone, Anthony Rendon is the perfect example of a guy that he did not like baseball. He does not love baseball. He's verbally stated that he views it as just his job more than anything else. And it's a shame because if he really did care enough, I think he could have been so good because we know how good he was in Washington. He won his World Series. God knows how much he even cared. But he got paid and was like, I just set me and my family up for generations. I'm good. I am good. And you've seen that exuded with the Angels. And that sucks for the Angels and their fans or whatever. But like, I don't think Juan Soto's sitting there kicking his feet up at age 26 of his MLB career. Like, all right, I've done enough.
funny enough,
It's not a legacy
Six
thing
plus.
here, you
Anthony
know?
Rendon has more 6+ WAR seasons than Juan Soto.
That doesn't surprise me. More impactful position at third base.
No,
Listen,
I just think it's
Soto.
kind of funny. It's this guy who does not care about baseball, was so good
That's
at
what
it.
he was so good. It's a shame. Look at Soto. Here's a guy like he still doesn't have an MVP. It's like the one thing it's eluded him. Every time he has a great season, it's like Wheeler. He's had great seasons consistently for about the last 4 years, arguably like the best. But there's always just some other guy that has the one off or some nuclear historic season that keeps them from winning. But regardless, the Mets got Soto, not fun. Um, Other moves that have been made in baseball, obviously, you said Max Fried to the Yankees, Devin Williams also to the Yankees, and then more like Phillies related in terms of people that were they. Well, also, yeah, I guess in terms of people they were interested in, Garrett Crochet trade to the Red Sox. Classic Red Sox trade for the 25-year-old controllable starter that they'd have no plans on paying, I'm sure, when that time comes. Pretend showing their fans that they care, but they won't actually spend the money to show it. And then the trade between the Houston Astros and the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs sending.
Well,
What do you want to start with?
let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's get back to Garrett Crochet.
Okay.
So let's talk. You said in relation to the Phillies.
Yes, and
So
your
with
involvement.
that being said, uh, so the Phillies have been trying to trade for Garrett Crochet reportedly since June,
Yeah.
right? And the Red Sox traded Kyle Teal, who was the headlining piece, and other prospects. The White Sox wanted the Phillies to trade Andrew Painter and Aiden Miller and other prospects, maybe like Starlin Caba or like Eduardo Tait, and
And
then
you're also
another,
probably throwing Ranger back too.
and then
But
Ranger, and then those negotiations broke down, and then they got 4 prospects back from the Red Sox. Red Sox farm system, I mean, Tristan Casas is pretty good. Durant's pretty good. Like their farm system has been producing players. It's so for the White Sox, I think it's a great trade. They got a lot out of it. They now have like top seven players in the
listen,
top
they'll see
60.
because this is nothing new. This is exactly what happened with Chris Sale and everyone. Yohan Moncada was supposed to be the next coming, and he just never was.
I will say this though: the White Sox trying to go the route of the Houston Astros 10 years ago, like, could make them, and especially a division that's not exactly like the most like top heavy, I guess, so to speak. The
Yeah,
best team in your division repeatedly trades their best players away
yeah.
in the Cleveland Guardians. We'll see. I'm actually. I did not. I wasn't really like torn up about the Phillies not acquiring Garrett
Neither
Crochet.
was I. Like the asking price was unfortunately too high,
And
and
by the way, the difference between him and Sale, I have Garrett Crochet's baseball reference pulled up. Michael, he's this last year was his first year as a starter. Pitched 146 innings, 209 strikeouts. That's insane. That's incredible. But like we both know, he's
it's a projection with him. You're making the trade assuming that you can keep him healthy and that he's going to really flourish. And like, listen, that's why it's one of those, all the good teams were involved. So like maybe they were onto something, you know what I'm saying? But they were asking a lot from the Phillies, and I can't fault them for making that move. Not the end of the world. Um, Another trade that went down with the Cubs and the Astros, as alluded to before, that I also almost can't even fault the Phillies because it's just what they were offering, and what was fair to be offering was not sufficient. So Kyle Tucker, all-star level, great hitting outfielder, um, due to be a free agent after this upcoming season on the trade block to the Cubs, another fake big market team that doesn't like to spend the money, but they like to make moves like this to show their fans, make them pretend that they care. Um, Kyle Tucker to the Astros for Isak Paredes and two prospects that are like good, but I wouldn't say cream of the crop, top of the line. And I think, the Astros, so the Phillies offer for Kyle Tucker was Nick Castellanos and Alec Boehm straight up 2-for-1. And like laughable for sure.
Maybe if you threw Taiwan Walker in there, they would have
They would
taken the
have
trade.
right. So the issue is, and what I'm seeing a lot of people saying, and I think the problem with Phillies Twitter is a lot of people are like, don't see how the Phillies couldn't have matched this. Don't see how the Phillies could have matched this because Boehm is significantly better than Paredes. And I'm like,
Not really.
I think we need to pump the brakes on all that. There's a lot of factors that make Paredes significantly more enticing to the Astros than Alec Boehm. One, I don't know if Alec Boehm is better, and if he is, it is not by much. It is marginal at best. Alec Boehm is 28 years old, going to be 28 years old by the season start. Paredes is 25 years old, so Paredes is 3 years younger already. The Houston Astros are not drinking the Kool-Aid that Alec Boehm got better defensively. And like he did improve for sure, but they're not drinking it enough to think that he is a good third base defender by any stretch of the imagination. They view Alec Boehm as more suitable to play first base as opposed to playing third base. And if he's going to be playing first base, you need a better bat out of that. He's 6'5" and he can't hit a lot of home runs. He's massive and he doesn't drive the baseball enough. The other aspect of it, which is kind of like it's what makes the Cubs like their kind of budgeting moves. It just kind of all makes sense. The Cubs acquire Paredes from Tampa, and Paredes was like a left field line merchant as a right-handed hitter, just
Yeah,
pulls
he
the
loved to
ball.
assault the little cutout in left field in
Yeah,
Tampa.
he would drop it right over the fence, all those home runs, right in that corner for some big doubles and stuff. Has like the third highest pull rate or second highest pull rate in all of baseball. And he goes to the Cubs Stadium, Wrigley Field, very not favorable down either line.
It's very
It like
cavernous down
yeah,
left and right field.
it like juts backwards further and then like comes in towards the gaps. It's a very strange stadium. You see a lot of unicorn home runs where it's only a home run in Wrigley in like the gaps, but down the lines you see that they miss a ton. So the Astros have fallen in love with the idea of taking a guy in a stadium that in Wrigley was not good for pull hitters, pull right-handed hitters, to taking him to Houston with the Crawford boxes, where you can make a whole living just based off the Crawford boxes, putting it in the seats, hitting
Yeah,
it off
just
the wall
ask Jeff
constantly.
Bagwell about that.
Exactly. And, there's a reason that they have so many successful right-handed hitters. Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve. Those guys, they benefited a lot from it. George Springer as well, Carlos Correa. They had a lot of right-handed hitters in their peak of their powers teams. So Alec Boehm, what do we know about Alec Boehm? Is Alec Boehm some pull hitter? Is Alec Boehm a dead pull hitter? No, he likes to hit the ball the other way. He likes to hit line drive singles into right center field. And all that stuff's fine and all. But the Astros, they don't view that as very valuable. So everyone's saying that the Phillies could have easily outdone this deal. No,
No,
if the Phillies wanted Kyle Tucker and they wanted it to be a Boehm-centered package, which is makes sense. The Astros want a MLB ready third baseman because they know they're not keeping Bregman. If they were going to do that, it was going to cost a lot more than just Alec Boehm. You were probably going to have to throw in Painter. It wasn't just going to be Boehm and Crawford get it done. Like it was going to be Boehm and Miller and maybe Crawford, Boehm, Miller, and Kaba, Boehm, Painter. Like you were going to have to give up one of Miller or Painter, if not both. And to me, that's just unfortunately not worth it. And it just kind of sucks because it's not. I don't think it's the Phillies' fault. Maybe they didn't do themselves enough favors when you benched him in the playoffs. You really kind of helped tank his value. It wasn't necessarily a well-kept secret that Alec Boehm isn't that good, as he was in April for his whole career. So I don't know. This is what you get, and now you can't trade him for something that would legitimately move a needle. But this is This is where you're left with. Kyle Tucker's now a Cub. I think the Phillies should have tried to get involved and make it a 3-team trade and go get Seiya Suzuki, because there's a silver lining. Suzuki didn't also go back to the Astros, which I feared he was going to be a part of that, but he's not.
Well, it's looking like Cody Bellinger might go to the Yankees now. So with
Listen,
this
that's fine.
Suzuki
I
no
want
possibility
Suzuki.
thing.
Go get Suzuki, man, from the Cubs.
Yeah, I think we listen, and then I mentioned earlier the Yankees got Devin Williams. You know, oh,
Do you hear that?
I heard that.
That's my father.
That's that's that's
Yeah,
Ern.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
hilarious. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, just to transition this over now, like I'm gonna try and be as unbiased as I possibly can, talking about the Phillies offseason. So the Phillies signed Jordan Romano to a 1 year, $7.5 million deal. Honestly, Michael, every time we do this damn show, I feel like
Did
a
we not
trade.
talk about this last time?
No,
Did we miss that? Was that this
no, I
week?
think it happened earlier than that, didn't it?
It happened during the week. Damn, I forgot we haven't talked about Romano. Damn. Okay.
So yeah, the Phillies signed Jordan Romano, former closer of the Blue
Classic
Jays.
Phillies signing.
Was bad this year. He was hurt, and then but a couple years before he was really good.
Last 3 years he's been
Yeah, it's a good
very
upside
good.
signing. It's like Corey Knievel, but better. I
It's
think.
better. It's like 7 points at that money at 7.75 million. It's like you're replacing what I think would be about Estevez level output without having to pay the price tag that Estevez is going to get this offseason. And potentially, and it's like the Estevez level output for a guy that, besides last year, has been better than Estevez for their whole careers, respectively. Like Romano's just been better.
Mm.
So I trust that the Phillies did their due diligence on his arm. They're not giving him a contract, not sure if the arm is healthy enough. Like I think they made sure that they trust whatever recovery, rehab, treatment plans that his elbow is going to be fine. So I do like that move. I do still think there's another bullpen move in the wing. They like to have 4 back end relievers that they can trust, and they currently have 3 sitting at Strom, Romano, and Kirkering. So I do think there's another one to be gotten, whether it's bringing back Jeff, whether it's Tanner Scott, whatever that may be. I think there's another one.
Yeah, I gotta be so. I do have to talk, and this is criticism. This is going to be. I think this is legitimate criticism of the Phillies and how they approach this offseason. Michael, I do think it's really scummy of the
Mm-hmm.
Phillies to imply that they were going to make moves this offseason. And then I guess putting out like conflicting information. Like obviously Middleton was like, yeah, we're not going to sign Soto because he wants to stay in New York, which is correct. He stayed in
Listen,
technically.
they were. I think they were in for the 600s. Once it got to 7, I think they were like, okay.
So, but neither here nor there. Excuse me. They kind of sold the fan base after they got bounced in the playoffs after having probably one of the worst collapses in team history. Right? They had to go off to the hottest start in team history and were basically a below 500 team after that.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, like, listen, season ticket renewals were going out. They were trying to sell tickets, to sell
Are
tickets
you
for
calling the
Christmas.
Phillies the Sixers?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's
Pretty much. I mean,
that's so much. They don't deserve that. I don't think.
no, they kind of do
Oh,
because like the like Michael, they're gonna run it back, and like the general vibe of everyone that follows this team is like you're out of your like you're gonna tell us you're a world championship team, like Michael, like I think what hurts the Phillies in a sense is that they have to contend with the Eagles for people's money, like and attention. Like Eagles have a collapse. One of the worst collapses in NFL history. Maybe the Phillies like collapse, projected to win like 115 games, only winning 95 games. Does that qualify as a collapse? Like technically no, because we think of collapses like
They still won
you.
the division. Like they still.
Yeah, like no, but it's still real. It was still bad.
I no,
It
I
was
hear
still
you.
bad, right?
It's
The Eagles have a collapse now. Granted, I'm comparing apples to oranges here because I'll that those each of those sports functions. What do the Eagles do when they have their collapse? Two brand new coordinators, one of the best defensive coordinators in the last 15 years in Vic Fangio, right?
mhm,
Sign
best
a
running back in the league.
best running back in the NFL. Re-sign popular player
See,
C.J. Gardner Johnson. Nail the draft. Um,
they made, and like the stuff that they had laid out in the previous years, like flourished. It blossomed. It grew nicely. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, like everyone took a nice little notch up.
but you look at the Phillies, it's like no changes at all.
Yeah, it's
And listen, and Michael, listen. I'm sorry.
it's
I have
so
one more
no,
point I
you're
want to
right.
make.
I get it.
I have one more point I want to make. Listen, if the Phillies want to be like, hey, we're going to give Aiden Miller a shot, Andrew Painter a shot, Justin Crawford a shot. We want to have our minor leaguers come up to fill spots. We don't want to just sign all these free agents. Like if they're like, we don't want to sign Bregman because we want Aiden Miller to be the third baseman of the future because we think he could be, not Bobby Witt, but like, look at the
That
Braves,
guy,
for
yeah.
example. We want to emulate. I'm all for that, Michael. I'm cool with that. This is what I'm not cool with is like they're just sort of acting like they're trying to act like they're the New York Yankees in terms of spending and then sell everyone on that and then just be like, oh, we were so close to getting this guy. We were so close to
I
getting
hear
that
you.
guy. We're
It's
so close to getting
frustrating.
that guy. To me, it's like you're conning the fans because you're getting them to spend money. It just feels like there's no plan in place. There's absolutely no plan. Like
I
the
think
fact they offered Alec Boehm and Nick Castellanos is like the one like a-hole in your fantasy football league that offers you garbage trades
yeah,
nonstop.
yeah.
Like that is so unserious.
Yeah,
Like,
that
and I'm
is an
not saying
unserious
like, oh, we don't like here's the thing. If you're like Andrew Painter, unless like for some medical reason he cannot be on this team until for this season, like they're gonna look like complete fools because it's like, okay, we don't want to trade Andrew Painter, but like we're really hesitant of having him pitch on the big league club.
Yeah, I expect them to be up not on opening day, but in like maybe like late May, June. But I listen, you're not wrong. It's very very frustrating. But I think what's it's no one
And
wants
oh,
to.
by the way, I want to get my effing trophy back is probably going to go down almost in infamy as
Yeah,
when
if
Jeffrey
they don't.
Lurie,
Yeah,
when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004, said we are the gold standard of the NFL.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. So I do think I will say I do think they're still going to add a bullpen back end arm, and I do think at the very least they're going to add an outfielder that we can view should be playing every day.
If they get,
And
I would, and listen, Michael, I want to be wrong. I'm
no,
saying this right
I
now.
of course you
I
do.
know
I
there's
know
some
you do.
people you see on Twitter, they just want to be negative because they want to be right.
Yes. No, I know you. I know you want to be wrong. I know the heart's in the right place. What's an unfortunate thing with the Phillies is that for the last 3 years, I do think the team that they've put together has been good enough to win something. I really do. You went, you choked, and you choked again. And I do think that the players there and what they assembled has been good enough. And I'm not saying that is the reason to run it back, but what I'm saying is that I think in their minds they view that and know that if things don't break their way in the offseason, it's not like some disaster if they don't get it. Like I don't think they're going to go into next year if they basically run it back and miss the playoffs, for example. Like that's what I think a lot of people are expecting to happen, and I don't think that's going to happen. I would be pretty surprised. I'd be floored if they don't make the playoffs next year. So would I like them to trade Bohm at this point? Like Yes, I would. I think it's gone too far. You've made too much of a thing about it that I think bringing him back at this point to be like, "Hey, Alec, we always loved you, man." I don't know if that's great. I think
No,
you
I think
should,
Alec Boehm right now is going to be a bridge between for Aiden Miller.
and I don't think that's a bad idea. I just think the way you hold like you didn't you don't want Bohm to just walk for nothing. And I think that they may have missed the opportunity to make that move. Listen, this is going to sound a bit ridiculous, but the Dodgers winning the World Series almost gave me a little bit of hope. And I know it's going to sound insane, but I think almost every baseball fan and baseball person looked at the playoffs last year entering it and was like, the Dodgers won't win because they just won't last. Their pitching will not be able to sustain a full playoff run to win a World Series. And what helped subsidize that was that Mookie Betts had an incredible playoff run in comparison to what he's done basically throughout the whole previous rest of his career. The only other good playoff run he had in his career was in the bubble with the Dodgers that won the World Series, where you can argue semantics of how much that actually translates to being a good playoff performer. Mookie Betts had a great playoff run. Freddie Freeman had a great playoff run, which both of those guys sucked in their effort to get swept in the divisional series last year. Shohei Ohtani was like God with runners on, and that was like enough. And their pitching, they got through almost by the skin of their teeth. It really felt like if the Yankees had forced the game 6, that their pitching was like on the ropes of just falling apart, and they were just going to have to outmash for one more game. And it's kind of what they did in game 5. Like they were down and they came back because the whole choke disaster, Judge dropping the fly ball, the whole thing. So my whole point in all of this is that you remove the bubble year because that is so shady, especially in baseball, maybe more than any other sport. The Dodgers kept going and they kept losing and they kept going and they kept losing. And there were various iterations of the team that were always the same in terms of dominance. The Dodgers were always winning the NL West. They were always winning about 100 games. They were always the favorite and they were always choking on themselves. And they finally kind of broke through where they got a favorable sort of run. Like the Padres was like, that was the toughest build for them was to get out the Padres. And then they got the Mets, which like we know what the Mets are and what the Mets were. They weren't some sort of juggernaut. They weren't some team built for the playoffs. They just had a lot of good voodoo going their way, and it ran out against the Dodgers. And the entire American League side of the field was not that good. I think any NL team that made the World Series was going to beat any AL team that came out of it. Truly, I like we know that the American League was weak. Things just sometimes need to break your way. And it's not an excuse for the Phillies to just blindly run things back and act like everything's going to be fine because they killed that goodwill. They had it after 2022 where they had the sour taste in their mouth and they talked about it all year. And then they were the better team and they choked. And then they were like, we have a double sour taste in our mouth. That was the worst thing ever. We are not going to let that happen. We're going to dominate from opening day on. And it looked like that for a while. They sort of coasted because they're like, okay, we have the division. We just got to stay healthy. And it kind of led to them coasting a bit. And then it led to them choking again. So they've lost a lot of that goodwill to just say, "Oh, we're so pissed off. We're gonna win." Like you can't believe that anymore from them because they've shown they haven't held it up twice. But they've put together products the last 3 years that has been good enough to win a World Series. And for a multitude of reasons, they haven't been able to. And it'll just be interesting to see as, you know, the offseason progresses, what changes they make, what improvements they make, because they're not done right now. They're going to do a few other things. Maybe it's not as substantial as we thought it was. Maybe they aren't going to trade Bohm. Maybe, it's just bringing back Hoffman, whatever. But
So
it's a shame.
I do want to bring something up, Michael, to sorry. I do want to bring something up about the Phillies. with I think what they're looking to do maybe for this year, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not they like if they admitted this like from the start. As a fan, I would have as a fan, I would have respected it. But I'm also not one of those people that like goes on Twitter and posts memes of myself. The Shane Gillis meme where he puts the gun in his mouth, and when like I don't know, like we lose out on signing a middle reliever, like people that just
Yeah.
freak out. Like you've seen the
Yeah.
people on Twitter who like freak out over the dumbest things and they threaten to boycott the Phillies because we let
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Stubbs go or something like really
Yeah.
asinine.
Yes. Yes.
If they would have said, or if it was like, hey, we're looking to get cheaper, controllable players this offseason because we're looking to do what the Dodgers did the year before they signed Otani of getting bad contracts off the books so we can go out and sign premier talent because we don't have the means to do that right now. If they would have said something like to the effect of that, maybe not as blunt as I just put it, but they
Mm-hmm.
said something like that, I'd respect that because that's what they're probably going to do.
I do think that they don't put out shit they actually want to do. Like, did we hear even a peep about Jordan Romano before they signed him? Like, not even once. And then Jim Salisbury was like, Philly's really interested in Jordan Romano. And it was like, oh, they're going to sign Jordan Romano. Like, it
Yeah,
was like, honestly, that's how, because if he tweets it, it's happening. Like, Jim Salisbury, I don't
of
think is ever.
course. Oh, of
So,
course.
so it's like, you don't, I do think they don't let things get out. So we're not sure. It could mean there's nothing. It could mean that they're close to making moves. But I don't disagree that if they did put out some sort of message like that, it would be better. The issue is they've created themselves this window that is obviously closing. You know, they created it when they signed Schwarber and Castellanos. They created it when they signed Turner at age like 30 or 29, whatever, and like Wheeler and stuff, where it's like, and JT as well, where you have this window that you'd like to win one starting in 2022, from 2022 to like maybe it stretches to like 2026, where it feels like you're still getting peak Bryce and, you know, peak athleticism, Trey Turner, and peak Wheeler, and all those sort of things where you want to win one in that time where those guys are your best guys for multitude of reasons. One, because they're really good when they're your best guys. And two, it's like, it's the whole point you built this team together. You know, you don't, and I don't think they want to necessarily admit that defeat. I don't think they want to say, yeah, we're going to take it easy these next couple off seasons and wait till we like restructure a Schwarber deal and, you know, we move off the Castellanos contract and the Walker contract can get moved off of. And, you know, I think they don't want to admit that because I don't think they want to.
Because you're admitting that one, acquiring them was a bad idea from the start.
Right. And
Two,
like, you're
two,
admitting that you're not trying as hard as maybe you can for what is ages 31 and 32 Bryce Harper, where again, he's not getting any younger. So,
I do think though. Last point, then we'll move on to football. Is if the Phillies do want to bring in either Christian Walker or Pete Alonso because they're both right-handed bats, they both have power. And listen, I think Pete
I
Alonso is a
can't have
dweeb.
Pete. I
Is
can't.
a total dweeb.
John, I
Like
can't do it.
I'm
And I
speaking from
won't
a
do it.
hypothetical standpoint.
It
Like,
is so much worse than Al Horford. It's not even funny.
oof.
And that's where you're at with that. It's like not just a rival. It's like hated, disgusted by, can't stand, despised rival. It is so much worse than anything I could imagine. It is not. No, no, I can't do it. I don't want it. I don't
What if
want to
he's
do it.
just
I don't
like,
want to
I
think
hate the
about it.
Mets for betraying me for
That's that. He would not do that. He would not do that. He would actually sign with the Phillies and then that same day put out how much he loves the Mets and respects their fans and the organization. And he might even throw in, uh, you know, uh, for the last time, LFGM. Like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. And I honestly, not for nothing, I think he's so deep in his own Mets thing that I don't think he even wants to be here. I don't think he wants to hate the Mets. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he can muster it up to like buy in on Mets hatred. Because I can't have that. I honestly can't. I can't have him going into City Field, getting the standing
What
ovation,
if
and like
Zach Wheeler is like? What if
weeping at the plate. See, Zach Wheeler hates the Mets. Legitimately can't stand them for what they did to him, for not giving him tickets to the World Series when he was on the team, to shafting him with the contract. He wants to shove it up the Mets' ass every time. Pete Alonso is going to be sobbing at the plate in his first at bat in City Field in a Phillies uniform.
I feel like
I don't need
But I
Clay
feel
Holmes
like
to
I don't
sit him
know.
on
Like
three
I don't want to
pitches
sign
for
Pete
that.
Alonso, but you know what would happen
I
with
want
the
him to go to the A's.
But no, you know what would happen if he did sign with the Phillies? It would be like, oh my god, why are we letting Philadelphia sign our players? First it was Saquon, now
Well,
it's
it would be. It would also. Another reason why I don't think they're doing that is like you're moving Bryce back to the outfield, and like I don't think they want to do that. At least not yet.
I mean, I don't know if you put Bryce in left field. I don't think it would put his. I think though, like here's the thing with Bryce at first that I noticed. Like at first, I thought it would
He was a
help him.
Gold Glove caliber first baseman. Like
It's not the defense that's the problem. My concern is like, dude, like first basemen are usually bigger guys, and it's because they have to kind of guys run into them. You have to block the ball.
they're
You
bigger because
know.
they're slow. Like it's a
Well,
not
no, like
high
well, dude, no.
movement
First
position.
base is not an easy position because you're running. Think about it. Every time there's a ground ball, most of the time you got to get up, move, run to first base, catch the
Yeah,
ball.
yeah, but you're not moving a ton. I don't know. There's not some first base isn't known for their great athletes.
No, but like my point is like first basemen are usually bigger guys, and it's like Bryce isn't a big guy, and you kind of see when they like run into like the wall, like trying to
Well, I
get
just think that Bryce is a bit reckless, and like I don't need that back in the outfield where I know he's going to crash into the wall all
Bryce
the
is gonna.
time.
I feel like at this point, Bryce Harper is like gonna crash into anything, no matter what position. Like if he played like it's totally unrealistic, but like you put him at shortstop, how much damage can he do running in the shit if he plays shortstop? He'd probably try to do the Derek Jeter thing where he runs into the
Yeah, but
stands.
it's the net, so he just eats the net every time.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
he's
he
just
already does that at first. So
like I'm just
listen,
saying. Like I don't know, man.
I don't think they're getting a first baseman because
No,
I
I
do
don't think
think
so either. But like
Bryce is the guy.
I
But
don't know. I feel
anyways,
like
we'll see what they do. It's they operate quietly, and we will see. We will see how it progresses as the off season continues. Hopefully, we have some more. Hopefully, we have news for the Phillies at all. But anyways, Thursday night football. Snoozer for sure.
props that.
I missed most of it because I was at the Flyers game, and I clearly didn't miss much. 12-6 final, no touchdowns scored between the Rams and the Niners. Always fun to see the Niners lose, pissing all on their grave. Don't care. Devondre Campbell straight up saying, I don't feel like playing today. Debo Samuel going on a Twitter tirade the whole time and then capping it off with very mediocre to bad performance on Thursday. You know, Cooper Kupp didn't receive a catch, yet didn't matter. It was all everything you kind of
My
wanted.
fantasy team, my playoff opponent has Cooper Cup.
Yeah, and the Niners they were driving with a chance to take the lead, and Brock threw an excellent end zone interception. It was all you could have wanted to
Niner
happen.
hate. Yeah, it's funny. We've been kind of. You wanted to bring up something about Kyle Shanahan, and listen, like I was making Grok Debo images of him working at McDonald's, and
Right.
because he's
Yeah.
so like he's beyond. He's like washed up. I mean, he looks out of shape. He can't separate. Apparently now he can't even catch, and it's really hilarious that like you look at the two Ole Miss receivers back in 2019. It's like AJ Brown and then Debo, and it's like, wow.
You went to Ole Miss?
I thought he did, didn't he?
Are you thinking of DK Metcalf,
I think I
John?
might be thinking of DK Metcalf. Where did Debo go?
He went to South Carolina. That's right. South Carolina. He was a Gamecock. I remember that actually. But point still stands. Debo was once one of the most electrifying players. Like there were times in their first Super Bowl run that they lost to Kansas City that he would touch the ball, and I would just say he's going to score. Like I felt like he was, and that continued into like 2021, where they could be from like anywhere on the 40 and in, and they would get him the ball in like an end around or like a screen. And if he got through like the first initial opposition, he was taking it to the house like every time. Like he was truly like something.
To Percy
And
Harvin.
yeah, and he's fallen off for a multitude of reasons. He was never a number one receiver. Like we've known that. It was part of the reason the Niners felt so pressured to keep Ayuk. Was the whole thing. Um, but my Shanahan thing is that I don't think the Niners are going to fire him. I think maybe ever. You've talked about their power struggle with like how John Lynch doesn't put out a great product.
I said potential power.
Potential power struggle. Like, but you've alluded that like they've had some draft miscues, especially in the first round.
Massive
That
draft miscues.
right, and Shanahan. This take isn't new. I feel like we even talked about it maybe last year. It's
General manager
very
has CTE.
yeah. Is that Kyle Shanahan is his tenure here is very similar to what Eagles Andy Reid was, and it was that whole
Yeah, I mean the results,
yes, like
yes, are the same. The end results are the same.
well, it's like the whole process of it. Of it's like he's ahead of the curve offensively, like a cutting edge, scheme wise and electrifying, and your great success in the regular season,
I mean, the
pretty
Eagles'
good.
offense is under Andy Reid for most of his career. Michael, believe it or not, like the Eagles would
Listen,
like for when Andy Reid's like top, like from like 2000 to 2003. So before they had To, like Michael, like the
it
Eagles
was
would
before
win.
they had To. They had
They would
me
win
and you at
games like
wide
I'm not even
receiver.
joking, like 17-7.
No, it was me and you at receiver, man. Like it was, it's
It
it's
was
a
like
travesty.
it was like watching the Chiefs now was like
Yes,
that
and
those
like
Eagle teams.
so when you get To, like the scheme was always there. You just didn't have the players to kind of fit it, and you get the player to fit it, and you see what the offense looks like with To. You get over the hump to go to the Super Bowl, all that sort of thing, whole nine. Shanahan has repeatedly, made it deep. There's regular season success. There is playoff success. You just haven't gotten the big one yet. And I think that if they were to fire him, it would be kind of like, opening up a new opportunity for him somewhere else to learn the mistakes a little bit and get better at it. So what Andy's fatal flaw was like he had like clock management issues that he still kind of has, but he gets it bailed out by having Mahomes and like Kelsey and stuff. And investing into having at least one freakish talent in the receiver realm to kind of help things out with obviously a freakish quarterback. Um, but Shanahan, he does not love having like great quarterbacks. It's always been like a meme, but it's like kind of true, wanting Jimmy Garoppolo, not pushing for Brady because of it when he was leaving New England. Um, you know, they draft Trey Lance, but he was never super keen on it because he wanted Mac Jones, you know, ending up choosing Purdy. Potentially, maybe they're going to pay Purdy. We'll see.
I don't know.
And
Let's be real though. That 2021 draft of quarterbacks, that might be one of the worst quarterback
right.
classes
No,
in
for sure.
NFL history, though.
Right. And you look at there's stuff that goes out there that Shanahan doesn't let Brock Purdy change blocking assignments, that Kyle Shanahan builds in hot routes to all of his plays, that if there is a free rusher, there is always a bailout option, whether it's to the running back, whether it's to the tight end or a short route to the receiver, whatever it is, there's always something. And it's part of like Shanahan thinking he kind of knows what is best and always has everything calculated for. Where I think the next evolution of what the 49ers offense is just letting Brock Purdy or whoever the quarterback is give them a little more autonomy with things. Like don't try to run the entire thing from the sideline. As much as you No, and as much as you've built them into situations where they succeed and put them in the perfect spot, let them switch things around. Let them make changes to help fix things. You saw this in the Super Bowl, and you're seeing it again throughout this year. And it's really hurt the Niners offense is that the teams disguise blitzes and pass rushes a lot better against the Niners now, where they drop someone back, but they send a couple other guys. And it's just, they take away the hot routes that Purdy wants to throw when pressure gets through, and you're leading to what you've seen a lot this year, which is what you saw at a lot out of Brock Purdy when he was at Iowa State, which is him running around. When Brock Purdy's run, he has the capability of doing it, but when it's like almost every play that he's scurrying around back there looking for someone to throw to, like there's a reason he was the 7th round draft pick. Like he was very careless in college. Like he would run around in circles and then he'd throw up an interception. It was like, okay, like this guy's a freaking bum.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, Michael, I agree with you.
you're
I mean,
seeing that
so
now.
I agree. It's like I don't know, I remember like watching like football highlights on like NFL Network during like my summer vacations, and like they would show like quarterbacks on like some of the really good teams. Like the
Hmm.
Steelers of like the mid '90s had this quarterback by the name of Neil O'Donnell, and that's like pretty much who Brock Purdy is. It's like this
Yeah.
guy who played with a lot of really good players. Who, if you put him
Hmm.
on a bad team, is just going to be god awful. You
Hmm.
know, that's Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy was on the Jets, he'd be terrible.
Right. And like you're seeing it when they get hurt and when things aren't healthy, the offense isn't as good. And it's like, again, there's the list gets shorter and shorter of quarterbacks that can succeed without like great weaponry. You know, it's not a big list. And Brock Purdy does not fall on that list. And I think the next step is kind of letting Brock run some things himself, what he sees out there, and making adjustments and whatnot. And I think that the Niners are going to have to enter a rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it. It's that period that the Eagles went through between their Super Bowl appearance and the conference championship appearance, where they lost to the Cardinals, where it was like you kind of got to out with the old and with the new sort of thing. Like I think you got to move on. You got to try to move on from Debo somehow. You're gonna have to rebuild out the offensive line. He's Trent Williams isn't getting any younger. Christian McCaffrey's not getting any healthier. Like you gotta, if you're gonna commit to Brock Purdy, you'd be honestly better off just kind of resetting stuff and
If you would
getting.
have, I mean, honestly, they probably should just maybe trade Brock Purdy and get what you can, like sucker some team to give you maybe like a first and like a second or something. Like the
No,
Jets,
listen, I'm not,
sucker the Jet, call the Jets and be like, give us your first round pick for Brock Purdy.
I don't know if the Jets would even do that one.
Oh, they would.
Well,
Oh,
there you go.
Woody Johnson. That's like the type of quarterback
That's
he
his
wants.
guy. Yeah, no,
That's
I don't.
exactly the type of that would be the most Jets move. Yeah, and like hire like a Shanahan disciple, and
Yeah,
then that's what you just do. And then I don't know if you're the Niners, maybe go out and sign Sam Darnold. How about that? Why don't you just
yeah.
sign Sam
You had him
Darnold?
in the building. So before we get into the picks, I want to just mention one thing. I don't want to talk about it because it doesn't deserve to be talked about, but we'll
Oh,
just mention it.
that thing on Monday.
Yeah, the whole like meltdown that like I was having for sure because I was like, what is Brandon Graham doing? If there is actual personal issues between Jalen and AJ Brown, why are you putting it out there? Even if there's not, which it appears there wasn't, what are you doing saying that there is? Like what are you doing? Whether there was, whether there wasn't, why are you saying it? And like awful, awful right there. And false alarm, whatever. They don't hate each other. But
All he had to say was just like, oh, like we love to challenge each other as teammates. Should AJ have said it to the press, especially with what happened last year? No, it probably was a bad idea because now he's just give. I know, like
he went into such a long-winded, like almost erratic way of painting this picture that AJ and Jalen can't speak to each other
It's
about
like
their
I don't know,
issues.
man. Is he just like feeling sorry for himself because he got hurt, and then like he's just like,
Dude,
oh
he
man.
sounded like he didn't take his like medication or something. Like he sounded like a crazy person for a
It's like I
second.
think
Like,
you know what? It's like when you tell a lie and you have to cover the lie,
dude, he's like, yes,
so
he was
you
acting like
so
a
you
little
like
kid.
so you like yap more because you're
Yes,
like
it
freaking out,
was
like
like a
kind of deal.
child. Like he was like, I just want to go away, man. Like I'm so sorry. Like I didn't want for any of this to happen. It's like, dude, what? Anyways, the whole point is that the passing game is a problem, which like we've known that this is
Um,
true. Like we know that there's
yeah.
things to get better on, whether it's and a lot of it is Jalen being more confident. Like they went too far. They went from Jalen having the most turnover worthy plays before the bye to now Jalen having just 3 since the bye, which is like insane. So they told him, hey, Jalen, you stop turning the ball over. We're going to win some games. So stop turning the ball over. And they let it go too far. They didn't find the middle ground of like just playing normally. They took it to he's going to play ultra conservatively and he's not going to risk anything. And again, they've been winning. So it's
I mean,
whatever.
I would say in the Bengal game, he was pushing it a little bit, which was good.
Well,
Uh,
it's been a progression. It's gotten worse.
well, it's a regression, is probably.
Yes, a re it's well, yeah, the progression of more conservative has been going on. And it started with like, he was still hucking it down the field against the Browns. They were still hucking it down the field against the Giants on like fourth downs and stuff where it didn't really make sense. And then the Bengals game, he pushed it. Jags game, pushed it. But like it just got less and less, and it was like it was getting less as Barkley was having better days. And like the Cowboy game, he did push it, and he saw turnovers. So since the Cowboy game, you have Thursday against the Commanders. Do you remember any like big plays like down the field pushing the ball? No. Rams game, it was all Barkley. Really, nothing was really pushed. Ravens game, same
Savante
thing.
hit a big throw.
What against the
Commanders.
Commander game? Where? I'm trying to think. Oh, yes, that was a good throw. He was very open, but yes, it was a very good throw. I remember. Um, on the other sideline, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been just a little less, little less, little less, little less,
I
and then
want to
it,
make a quick point, then we'll go into the picks.
yeah,
So I rewatched a lot of his throws against the Steelers 2 years ago, and
those were
like,
some effort balls for sure. The first one,
yes,
really.
I will say this though with
The first
Jalen.
one was the most like I don't care. It's double coverage. I'm more throwing it to AJ because that was just like AJ went and made a play. The other two were like perfectly
I
thrown,
think
but
we're going to see a lot of those tomorrow, by the way. But I do think though, like some of his, like Jalen, I feel like is holding on to the ball too long. I think they're trying to sort of like force him to make his progressions and not play hero ball. And the problem with that is this should have been done in training camp, not the bye week. And
yeah, and like your result of it is getting what you're getting, which is him
now,
not
which
trusting.
now, like, I don't think it's like unfixable or I don't know, like correct
No,
course.
it's definitely not.
But I do
Um,
think that the next 4 weeks are going to be pivotal. Where if he goes out and has like a good passing game against the Steelers, you play your division the next 3 weeks after the Steelers. And the Eagles have a lot of familiarity with all three of those opponents, right? And chances are they're going to not be able to rest their starters for the rest of the season because of they want to get that first round bye. That
yeah, we'll see.
ultra
We'll see by the end of the year. They might be locked in by that last game. That wouldn't surprise me.
right. So we'll see. But let's get into the
We
picks.
will see. I will say one last thing before the picks. Like you said, the next 4 weeks are imperative, very important. And people are like, oh, to sacrifice the chance for Saquon to get the rushing record, and it's like, okay, that's fine. I don't like I care, but I don't care. You know what I'm saying? If it happens, it happens. I don't need to push for Saquon to get the rushing record. I don't. So my point is that it would behoove them to spend the next 4 games really working on the passing game just to get it to where it needs to be. Where if in a scenario you are playing. I said this before the Panthers game. I'm regurgitating myself. Is that in a scenario where a team is selling out to stop the run and succeeding at such, we need to be able to trust the passing game to win a game. And you have the talent from the quarterback, from the
I
receiver
mean,
room
Jalen
to
won
do
you
it.
the game against the Browns, and they sold out to stop the run.
He did. That was a long time ago now at this point. And like,
That was after
you
the
know,
bye.
I know that was the
But
first
no
game
one
after
sells
the
out to
bye.
stop the run against the Eagles, Michael. That's the thing. That's what Chad Johnson
John,
said.
listen, I'm not
That's what
disagreeing
Chad
with you.
Johnson brought up. He said like
They can't
he
stop
was
it
like
because AJ and Devontae are so good that they can't afford to just throw 8, 9 guys in the box to stop Barkley. You're not wrong, John. But the problem is that you get a game like the Panthers game, which is one of Jalen's worst games in a while. Again, not in terms of reckless, careless, killing detrimental plays, but like
maybe the Eagles just are bad against cat named teams, Michael.
you're
They
just
almost
not.
lost to the Jags. They
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 did.
probably should have lost to the Jags. They
They're
probably should
just
have lost to the Panthers.
throws. There were just throws that were there that weren't being made, and it's just timidness. It was timidness. It wasn't trusting, and there's no reason not to trust it when you've been hitting those your whole career. And
I mean,
I
yeah,
just hope to
when
see
he
it.
had AJ open down the field in the first drive, and he was like checking. It's sort of
Check
like
down to Dotson
yeah,
for 5 yards, and
yeah,
it's
yeah. I
like
will say this: Jahan Dotson getting more targets in the first drive than AJ the entire game. I think the head coach needs to and the offensive
rework
coordinator
the
to
scripted plays.
need
Yes,
to like be like, I like listen. We'll just this is last, and then we'll get to the picks. Is like I appreciate Jahan Dotson working his ass off. Does that mean he
he's
should
not
get?
very good.
Does that mean he should get 4 targets the
There
first
is
drive of the game? Absolutely not. I'm sure Will Shipley works very hard too. Same with
there is
Kenny
a
Gainwell. Should they not give Saquon the ball to reward those two? Absolutely not.
there is a reason that Dotson was about to be cut by the Commanders. That is it. But anyways, into the picks. We got a full slate, John. We have no bye weeks. We have 2 games on Monday because why? Who knows? 2 games on a
I'm a little upset
Monday.
we don't have like a London game so we can justify putting the TV on in the parking lot at 9:30.
At
Testing
9:30, yes, there's no
testing
justification.
out the new
The
antenna I
new
bought.
methods. But speaking of the alma mater of Jahan Dotson, the Washington Commanders will take on the New Orleans Saints. Jake Hayner will be under center for the Saints.
Why?
Right.
Oh, Derek Carr's hurt.
Derek Carr is hurt, and
Bro, how awful must Spencer Rattler be for them to not even consider him?
So the Commanders are 7.5-point favorites on the road in New Orleans. We talked about the Kingsbury stuff. We talked about it all, and the only thing that was going to probably restrict it from being a total utter disaster is the easiness of their schedule. And what was one of those games that would feel like maybe it's not, going into New Orleans, all that sort of stuff. It gets a lot easier, I think, when you have Jake Hayner playing quarterback on the other side of it. So I'm taking Washington.
I'm taking Washington as well. I know the Saints have won 3 of their last 4 with the interim head coach. I know he's got like a suit like Rocco something or other.
Reezy or whatever.
Yeah, like that's cool. That's great. Dude, like my heart is telling me to take New Orleans because the Josh Harris negative vibes. Like, think about like this should be a game. They should pace this team, but they're in the dome, and you just think like, why shouldn't they blow them out?
I don't think it'll be
by the
like.
way, this is Jaden Daniels' homecoming in a sense because he played at LSU.
Yeah, I mean
So,
they're
you know what?
winning the
We're
game.
taking the Commanders because Jaden
Yeah.
Daniels' family is going to be there, his friends.
The whole 9.
Yeah.
Next game
yeah.
is the Dolphins and the Texans. So the Dolphins season is on life support after their overtime victory against the New York Jets. They are currently sitting at 6-7, which is a few games out of a wild card spot. They got some work to do to catch up. They need Denver to start faltering. The Texans, they're at 8-5. They're 3-point favorites at home here, coming off a bye. The Colts have a very favorable schedule to end the season. I'm not saying that they're going to win the division, but what I am saying is that the Texans can't manage to squander their chances here. I think I'm going to take Miami +3. It's in a dome, favors well for Tua. I still just have not loved anything the Texans have really done all year, and I'm gonna ride with Miami to maybe steal one on the road here and really heat
I'm
up
going
that
to take the
AFC South.
Texans. I'm going to take the Texans because I feel like if there was ever a team right now that needs a get right game, and especially for CJ Stroud, who, look, Michael, the CJ Stroud is right now probably in the most textbook sophomore slump
Yeah.
we've seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably since like RG3 almost. Like it's like really bad.
Yeah.
Like CJ, like there's only so many excuses you can give Stroud for like his O line, not being that great. But it's some
Yeah.
of his reads are just awful. And I do feel like with this Dolphins team, like they struggled to beat the Jets. They're at home. I feel like Nico Collins is gonna have a monster game. I'm taking the Texans.
Next game we have the Jets and the Jags. Don't want to spend much time on this. The Jags, Mac Jones, against the Jets. The Jets are 3-point favorites on the road. I'm taking Jacksonville to cover the 3. I don't know. Like Jets
Michael,
are so cooked.
I'm taking the Jets. I'm going to tell you why. One, they need to win a game. Two, there's just some like just dysfunctional organizations, Michael, where you're like, okay, the silver lining.
Two of them here.
We're gonna yes, where they're like, like Aaron Rodgers right now is playing for a job somewhere else next year, and I would not be surprised if he puts together
his job is like. I'm not gonna. His job is like a news anchor. That's what his job is.
No, he wants to milk another like $40 million out of someone, then be a news anchor. Is what I'm saying.
You can get $40 million from like Newsmax or something, right?
No, probably not. More like
from like be a permanent guest on the Joe Rogan Experience.
No, he's probably like I don't know. Like his Q factor right now is at an all-time low, so I don't think anyone's going to pay him $40 million. I mean, like you said, you had the best observation. Like Netflix has that show Enigma, and he's like a complete opposite of an enigma.
I know everything about Aaron Rodgers. Actually,
I probably know what he had for breakfast this morning.
Exactly.
Ayahuasca. I'm going to take my original point being, there's always teams. You're like the Jets are probably thinking, wait, we have an outside shot at tanking. Maybe we can get Shador. No, they're going to botch it.
Woody Johnson does not want Shador Sanders.
Or I don't know, Travis Hunter. It'd be kind of cool to have Travis Hunter, right? That'd be kind of cool, right?
He has to be a Jet.
That'd be kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. They're going to botch this. They're going to totally botch this, and they're going to win this game.
Next game we have are the Bengals and the Titans in Tennessee. The Titans coming off that Jags game last week, that was just unbelievable.
Bryce
Bengals
and revenge.
The Bengals are coming off one of the flukier wins I've ever seen. That whole sham with the block punt, Cowboy touched it, Bengals got it back. The Cowboys defense has quietly been playing fairly good since Micah Parsons got back. And listen, you should have got the ball back only having allowed 20 points to the Bengals. Impressive. Deserve your flowers for it. Really since that Eagle game, the Cowboys defense has been looking pretty solid. That being said, the Bengals have very, very slim chances at a playoff desire. And, Joe Burrow's campaigning just to make sure we can keep T. Higgins. He is prepared to be very upset if they do not keep T. Higgins. I don't think they're keeping T. Higgins. I will say I think he's going to go. The Bengals are not savvy enough nor want to spend a lot of money on both Chase and Higgins. They won't do that. So I do think he's going to go
I don't think
somewhere.
they're going
I
to pay
think,
a combined $90 million a year to keep both of them.
Listen, wow. I think T. Higgins is going to be an awesome Charger. That's what I think is going to happen. But anyways, I'm taking the Bengals -5. The Titans defense has, they get thrashed by Washington, then they play well against Mac Jones, and now I think they're due to get thrashed again. Jamar Chase is putting up historical numbers at this point.
I'm gonna take the Bengals as well. I mean, I do think. Also too, kind of lost on Monday night was that the Bengals defense looked semi competent.
Yeah, I mean, how much can
In
we?
other words, they didn't allow 40 points because they're facing an opponent that would not capable of scoring that many points.
Cooper Rush. It
Yeah,
was like the Cowboys.
but it's like I. This is what I kind of
Cowboys
think
just
they
did
do.
that game was so stupid. They hit Lamb a lot early, and then
They
it's like they
stopped.
forgot about him for a quarter and a half, and then it was like, oh yeah, and then fourth down, he's wide open, and he might have scored on said being wide open on fourth down, and he throws it to Brandon Cooks. I don't know. Was not ideal.
I think with the Bengals right now, I would not be surprised if the Bengals go 3-1 and maybe knock off having an upset, and then and then they have a decent off season. They tag Higgins and then trade him and then get more picks, and then people and then you see
Days.
and then people bring up that they're this dark horse team next year. This is kind of like a game where they need their defense especially needs to
Things improve itself a little.
yeah, exactly. Guys, can you keep guys on the team and the defensive coordinator most likely should be fired, Lou Amarillo. But if they have a really good last month of the season, it might be justification to keep him. I guess I'm taking the Bengals. Oh boy. Oh wow.
The Ravens are taking on the Giants. Now, the last time these two teams played, the Giants won. The Giants also went to the playoffs. The Giants are not going to the playoffs this year. 16.5-point
It
spread.
was also the last time Lamar Jackson was not prolific.
Everything is pointing to just go ahead and take the Giants, because too much stuff is coming out about you look at the Ravens and the Ravens, what they do, and it's every game besides the Eagle game is you ask a Ravens fan, and it's the Ravens play up and play down to their competition. They play up to the good teams, and they blow out Buffalo 35-10, for example. They kill them. They, Broncos are this playoff team, and they absolutely rail them. But then they go and they lose to the Raiders, and it's wow, they only beat the Cowboys, what ends up only being a field goal because you let a team hang around. You lose to the Browns. You're sweating it out with a Bengals team that is 4 games under 500. You lose, you can't score against the Steelers. All sorts. They play up and they play down to whoever they're playing. So you would think, that. And when it comes out of Giants practice that their red zone drill went 0 for 17 on the offensive side of the ball. They could not complete a pass. They could not convert a touchdown. And the Ravens defense has actually quietly been playing fairly well since I think it's that last it was since the Broncos game, their defense has been playing pretty well. So I'll take Baltimore to cover 16.5 points against the Giants, but I don't necessarily.
Yeah, I'm taking Baltimore as well. I'm going to tell you why I'm taking Baltimore. Tyler Nubin was pushed uninjured reserve. Basically, the Giants are packing it in. They are tanking. They want to tank the rest of the year to ensure they're in a position to be able to get Shador Sanders. I don't know if you saw the clip from last night because the Heisman I think is presentations tonight. Shador's throwing passes or having a catch, excuse me, with Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is the happiest I've ever seen him in the city of New York. The Giants are more than happy to basically tank this year and no, their fans. There's no way their fans can get more angry. I think it would anger their fans if they start winning and it ruins their tank. So I think they're just committed to it. They're going to take it on the chin and just get the hell out. They just end the season. So I'm taking the Ravens.
All right, and the next game we have here.
This is hilarious that this is actually even.
In terms of the spread, well, like someone once said, every time the Chiefs play, they should be on the money line minus 800, but on the spread should be about 3.5 points every time. And they're probably right. They always win, but they never cover any sort of spread. So here, with the Chiefs facing the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, the Chiefs are only 4.5-point favorites. The 12-1 Chiefs versus the 3-10 Browns. It's only a 4.5-point spread. Could you riddle that? That is crazy. I'm taking Kansas City. I think everyone's kind of waiting for them to lose. And I do think they're going to lose at some point, and it may cost them the 1 seed. But the Browns, I don't know. The Browns are so just funny every time. And, it feels like this is the week where the Chiefs, I'm not saying they're going to blow out Cleveland, but it's the time where they finally cover a spread because Vegas will give the low line and the Chiefs are going to handle it. So take Kansas City. Butker is back as well for them.
I'm taking the Chiefs as well. Listen, bro. I feel like with Jameis, he's been playing well enough to maybe be a bridge quarterback. But I do think that I feel like this might be the game where people might be overthinking it a little bit. Most fans hate the Chiefs. You're going to hate bet on the Chiefs, but you're going to trust the Cleveland Browns to come through.
Cover, exactly.
That's ridiculous. Now, it would be DEFCON 5 if they somehow lose this game because, I remember, this is something, people brought up about the Chiefs and, being oh, it's okay that they're winning all these close games. Look at the last time Brady won a Super Bowl with New England, where they went 11-5, and they won the Super Bowl against the Rams, where Jared Goff crapped himself in front of 50 million people.
You got a very favorable. Listen, they had to go beat the Chiefs on the road, which was very impressive. New England.
So I have that team pulled up. FYI, Michael, some of these 38-3 against the Jets. 24-12 against the Bills.
I actually recently looked up this because I wanted I recently did this a few weeks ago because I was curious to see how that Patriots offense was functioning all year, and I was like, it was pretty normal. And they had that playoff game against Kansas City, the conference championship game,
where D Ford lined up offsides.
Yeah, D Ford was offsides. Brady got a little bailout, roughing the passer call, and it was Romo was cooking. That was when he was that was peak Romo announcing, where he was calling out the plays before they happened, before they told him to stop doing that. And now he's just the worst and really annoying. So, but yeah, he was killing it every time. He was oh, they're gonna run motion and Edelman over the middle, Jim, and it's exactly what happened. It was oh wow, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so we're both taking Kansas City. Next game we have Cowboys Panthers. Panthers are 3-point favorites at home. I couldn't tell you the last time the Panthers were probably favored.
2 years.
I'm taking Carolina. They're so due to actually finish a job and win a game. They've been playing so well against good teams and just getting victory snatched out of their grimy little paws that I think this is the week that it all comes together and they put together a full winning performance, and I think they get it done this week. Listen, the Panthers defensively against the Eagles played pretty well. Like obviously the Eagles ran pretty successfully on them, but it like took time to get to that point. And then offensively, Chuba Hubbard is very much like James Conner in terms of like he's a very hard guy to tackle, and he brings the force to you where you're gonna have to get him to keep him from getting like 4 yards every single time, and that's what they were doing. The Eagles defense played well, but the Panthers were not getting like they weren't getting the Eagles defense wasn't getting off the field because the Panthers were putting themselves into very favorable second and third downs because they were running the ball so effectively or on early downs. So I think if they kind of follow that same sort of formula against Dallas, they should be fine. I think they're going to win. I'm taking them -3.
I'm taking the Panthers as well. I do think that the Cowboys have like so many injuries right now, like Demario Overshawn torn ACL.
Mm-hmm.
That's big, and I just also feel at some point like the Cowboys might just do what the Giants are doing and tank and just shut everything down,
Mm-hmm.
preserve everyone's health for the following season. Listen, like Bryce Young, I feel like when a young quarterback wins a game against the Cowboys, it's sort of like
An angel gets their way.
well, kind of. It's
Yeah.
like, remember when Kyler beat the Cowboys? It's like, oh, he's here, Kyler Murray. Even though the Cowboys are like ass. It's like, it's going to be like, it's going to get everyone's attention, where like Bryce Young beating like the Saints, like no one cares. But it's like,
No, but like if he had won any of the last like 3 games, it's Kansas City against the Eagles, whatever. Yeah, it would have been a big deal. And like this will play.
I agree. I agree. That's kind of my. He gets his wings. Like, yeah, that's pretty much what he is, right?
Next game is the Eagle game. We will hold off. Big 4:00 slate. The NFL is tired of everyone complaining about the 4:00 slate, so we'll hold off on the Eagle game and we will skip to Bills Lions in Detroit. The Lions are 2.5
Everyone
favorites.
just hates the Lions.
Well, the spread. Everyone's spread betting the Bills, money line betting the Lions. I hate the Lions. I can't. I wake up and think about in fear us being the reason the Lions go to their first Super Bowl, and I don't want to see it happen. I was at the Flyers Red Wings game, and there's this Red Wings fan chanting Jared Goff, and I was getting angry. I was not happy. I can't stand them. Very annoying. Everyone thinks they're these golden children, even though they're like a very dirty team. It's no surprise that Dan Campbell was in that locker room of the Bounty Gate Saints. I think people forget that. Yeah, don't love the Lions, and I'll be hate keeping track on my phone heavily. I'm taking Buffalo, and I think it's like a realistic thing for me to think the Bills are going to win here on the road. I look at how the Eagles, the path to the 1 seed, and obviously it's rather dire at the moment, but I think the best case, obviously they need to lose to an NFC team, and I think the best case what you can ask for as an Eagle fan is, let's say the Bills take care of business and they win on tomorrow against Detroit. Now the Lions have 2 losses, but they have the tiebreaker over the Eagles. It sets up that week 18, let's say the Vikings lose one more game before week 18. It sets up that Lions-Vikings game, which will probably be flexed to Sunday night, will decide the NFC North and in turn decide the 1 seed between the Lions and the Eagles. As if the Eagles win out, that is that, the Lions lose, Eagles are the 1 seed, Vikings are the 2 seed, Lions become the 5 seed. Or if the Lions win, they're the 1 seed, Eagles are the 2 seed, Vikings 5 seed. So that's my optimal situation. And I think, outside of that potential Vikings game, the best bet for the Lions to lose a game is going to be tomorrow against Buffalo. So I'm taking the Bills plus 2.5 here.
I'm taking Detroit, laying the 2.5.
Ugh.
Reason being is I'm a little concerned at how the Lions offense has just kind of been a little quiet the last few weeks. I
I
know
wouldn't
they.
say that. I mean,
I mean,
they're
well, I
hanging
mean against
30
the
points.
Colts. I mean against the Colts and the Bears. I think they've been. I think in that Packer game, like the Packers defense is just garbage. Like that's.
They stopped the like are you saying like the run game hasn't been as
Yeah, I would say so. Like their run game. I mean, Dave Montgomery hurt his shoulder. It wasn't a serious injury. They were taking it easy with him. Jameer Gibbs, for whatever reason, they like don't fully trust him. So like, I don't know. It's sort of like to me, like they gave up 45 points to the Rams on the road
Mhm.
and they scored 42 points and we saw how the Rams offense underperformed on a short week. Like like the Bills are going to have to score like 35 points I think to win this game, or 38
Mhm.
points. Are they capable of scoring 80 points in 2 weeks, Michael? I don't know. Odds are most likely not. So, and like I don't know, man. Do you notice how like Detroit now gets like all of the favorable calls?
Yes.
Like we know how Allen is the golden boy right now. He's the front runner to win the league's most valuable
The
player
Lions are the
award.
golden team, man. They don't get shit called against them. They a lot of holding penalties they got away with on Thursday against Green Bay. It was a
It would
lot.
be really satisfying if they lose because they do their like cutesy, like, Dan Skipper pass plays, or like they get so overly
They
aggressive
try to get like David Montgomery to throw a pass,
and it gets
something
like
like that.
picked.
Yeah. Yeah. Or he gets like strip sack because he's trying to pull it out to throw it or something. No, yeah, I agree. That would be my desire for them. I think ultimately, whatever way the Lions are going to lose, it's going to be because of their aggression. Like we saw it last year where they ran fourth down plays. They actually some of them worked. Like you had Josh Reynolds dropping a fourth down conversion. Then you had other ones where you just didn't get it. Where you're in field goal range and you're not kicking the kicks. And I know they didn't trust their kicker, but it was like it's what did them in. And I feel like the Lions' path to them losing is to them sticking with their guns, going forward on fourth downs and stuff, which I'm not saying they shouldn't do, but I think sometimes it might just come back to bite you sometimes, and we'll see. Next game we have Colts Broncos. Nice little, you know, matchup there. The Broncos are 4.5 point favorites at home. This is a huge week for both of these teams. This is a week the Colts, like Broncos winning all but I think would clinch themselves a playoff spot. Like that would pretty much lock it in. That would put it away. That would keep the Colts at bay, and your AFC playoffs really kind of get shaped out at that point. Colts win, things get a lot more interesting. Texans start sweating a bit. Broncos are definitely going to start sweating a bit. I'm taking Indianapolis on the road, coming off the bye, plus 4.5. I'm taking Indy.
I'm going with Denver here. I do think though with Anthony Richardson, like he's been playing better since his benching.
For
Um,
sure.
I think this is a really bad matchup for him because Vance Joseph loves to run. I think he runs a variation of the Fangio defense, and like I also do feel like that defense really negatively affects young quarterbacks. Like we talk about last week's game, the Eagles and the Panthers. Bryce Young had his like resurgence. It was easily his worst game, right?
Like statistically, it was. I would say
Like the Eagles' offense was so putrid, it
I
gave the
would say
Panthers chances.
what he did well was like his escapability was excellent. The Phillies. The Eagles couldn't really get to him. They couldn't get sacks. He was extending plays. He was finding the exits almost every time and like just keeping drives alive that way. Statistically, it wasn't pretty. Does it look prettier with a 40-yard touchdown at the end of the game? Absolutely. So, you know,
But I think like Bryce Young is like way more ahead of his development than Anthony Richardson is, and I also do
sure.
think that the Colts just, I don't know. It's like I feel like they should be better than what
They
the
don't
record
move you.
indicates.
Yeah. Well, they should. They should. They definitely have choked away.
So
But
I'm taking Denver.
that'll tie up your AFC for you. Next game we have here is the Buccaneers at the Chargers. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites. Buccaneers are now in first place after the events of last week. And I think that I did a few weeks ago. I went through that website that you can pick the result of every game. Um, because I was doing, and originally I was doing it to help map out possibilities for the Eagles to get the 1 seed. And while I was doing it, I found myself predicting that the Atlanta Falcons were going to lose their next 2 games, which they have, and then they were going to win out. And they play the late game Monday against the Raiders. And I looked at Tampa and I said, Tampa is going to be in first place for a moment. Everyone's going to think, oh, they got all the momentum, it's whatever. But then they have a tougher schedule that I think they're going to let themselves lose. And I think this is where it starts. I think the Chargers get a home win here coming off of an extremely frustrating loss to Kansas City last Sunday night. Lad McConkey, I do think, is going to be playing this week. And that was a
That's
huge
huge.
That's huge. He's still listed as questionable, but I do think that's huge. Lad McConkey's a really, really good player. I think he's like top 3 or 4 in yards against man coverage. One of
Yeah,
those.
I don't know if I said this before in our podcast, but I did. I said Lab McConkey reminds me a lot of Steve Smith.
Yes, I think. Did you say it on the podcast? Did you say it? I forget where you said that, but I do remember you saying that, and I agree with you. He's undersized guy that can punch above his weight and get off on man coverage. It's not you're like people like to just make the white receiver comparison just because he's a small white receiver and like oh it's Wes Welker. It's like no, it's
No,
not.
he's like
Like
100 times more talented than him.
yeah, it's like it's a legitimate weapon that can get open and can get a lot of yards after the catch. Like it's not just your Cole Beasley on 3rd and 3 catching a 4-yard out route because he can get open.
Or like
It's
Hunter Renfro.
no, like this is the guy that can beat man coverage off the ball, create enough separation that he can also catch and run for another 15, and it's like a big play. He's got a ton of he's got a ton of yak, and he's got a ton of yards against man. It's a very, very valuable asset that if he's playing last week against classic Justin Herbert, but if he's playing last week against Kansas City, Chargers probably find a way. And I expect him, playing this week. I think the Chargers get a win at home against Tampa.
Yeah, I like the Chargers as well. I do think I feel like Baker is due to just like have one of those games where you're just like, this is why he's never going to be Herbert or Burrow
Mm-hmm.
or Allen or Mahomes, where he just makes just really bad decisions. Like, is he a fun player to watch? Oh, of course he is. He's a very fun player to watch.
Yeah.
I just think like you're just like, this is why he's never going to be in like the upper tippy top echelon of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, I think which game did he have where he almost cost them the game from? It was against the Raiders.
Baker, yeah, he was
They
awful.
they should have blown them out like
Yeah, he had
49
like 3
nothing.
turnovers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, that's Baker for you.
Yeah.
To wrap up the 4:00 slate, the Patriots and the Cardinals. Cardinals may have pissed away their divisional hopes last week with a disappointing loss.
Kyler Murray was doing 360 no scope passes.
Again. Yeah. The Cardinals they're They are frustrating because their defense has actually been playing fairly well for some time now, and it's their offense that hasn't been able to keep up, which is a shame. Um, whether it's Kyler not playing as well, whether it's they're not scheming Marvin as well as they should be. It's a lot. It's a multitude of things. I think that is just
I think
they
part of
need to
the issue
build
is
that.
Kyler Murray's kind of attitude, where it's sort of like, we basically, like, you think about, we talk about these we talk about these quarterbacks where teams don't go out and pay a premium or make a major decision to like help them by getting a premier talent at the receiver position. You look at the Bills, like they drafted Keon Coleman, who was promising, but it's not like went out and got Marvin, or
No,
like neighbors, or
no, Kansas City with like Worthy and
like they went out, they
Juju.
bring in Marvin, one of the Ohio State Buckeye cyborg wide receivers, probably the biggest cyborg of all their wide receivers they've produced. We're
Yeah,
talking about Olave, who, if you never,
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson,
Yeah.
like those dudes. I think
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, dude, and he's like, well, I don't have to figure out how to get him involved, like whatever. It's like, dude, stop being a Jo, and
Yeah.
like that's gonna be Kyler's problem. Kyler Murray's issue is he has too much of a baseball player's mentality playing a purely
More
team
team oriented
oriented
sport.
sport.
Yeah. 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 He needs. It would behoove them this offseason to really, really build a great connection and a relationship because they're like that being on the same page away from one of the best offenses in the league for sure. You can improve, you can focus on improving the offensive line a little bit more, but it's like a receiver room that's, Marvin and Michael Wilson and like, you roll through your names like Greg Dortch or whoever the hell. It almost doesn't even matter a ton because you got
Trey
Trey
McBride
McBride.
doesn't have any
Right.
receiving
You have
touchdowns.
Trey McBride and like James Conner is a very, very good running back. And that offense just should be very high functioning at all times. And that relationship, I think, is imperative. So, with all that being said, I am still going to take Arizona -6
I'm
in like
taking
a
the Patriots to have yet
desperation.
another process loss.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Arizona -6 and England +6. Okay, on to Sunday night football. We have the Green Bay Packers
It's the
on the
anniversary of
road
the Fail Mary.
against the Seattle Seahawks. Um, the Packers at this point, with the loss to the Lions, really kind of blew their chances at any sort of divisional hopes. At this point, they're just kind of chasing the Vikings for better wild card seeding, where the Seahawks, coming off what was a really big win, created some separation in the division. But with the Rams keep continuing to win, they can't just totally let their foot off the gas. So I'm going to take Seattle +2.5. They're home underdogs against the Packers, and I think they're going to win. I think the
Packers win a
Packers
lot of December games, Michael.
they do, but I'm gonna trust Seattle to kind of keep winning and hold like a win here. I'd feel you feel almost perfect about Seattle finishing off the division, and I think they know that. So taking Seattle +2.5.
Uh, I'm going to take Green Bay.
All right.
I'm taking Green Bay because I think Seattle's, they're playing better, but I also feel like there's a difference in physicality when you're going against like Josh Jacobs versus like James Conner. Like, we've
Mm-hmm.
obviously seen, if Josh Jacobs, kind of like Saquon Barkley, if they're in a competent offense,
Mm-hmm.
that they can flourish. And I think that's what you're seeing with Jacobs. And I feel like Listen, Seattle's been playing really well. I think they're due for a letdown, and the fact the Packers are coming off a really bad loss to the Lions on the off the mini bye, no less.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to
Yeah.
take Green Bay.
All right, next game we have 2 Monday nights. So first one is Vikings Bears. I think the Bears, unfortunately, like they fired Shane Waldron, and the offensive coordinator that replaced them was doing pretty good. And then they fired Matt Eberflus, and they made that same interim offensive coordinator the interim head coach. And I think that was just a lot of responsibility thrown on a person in a very short amount of time. And I don't think he was really ready to be like equipped for that. And
You
I think like
know, it's
laddering
not.
it was not ideal.
You
Like
know,
it's a shame.
like every team that's had like the interim coach like mojo, like the Jets. I feel like it teams there's like Dennis Allen was just awful. He was just
Right.
awful. He needed
Right.
to go. Anyone else would have gotten a response out of his team, right? In that scenario. Who was the other interim coach that's like doing well?
Oh, there were only been 2 coaches fired, right? No one's doing well. It was just the one. Like it
Well,
was
what we've seen, right, with the interim, like
oh,
Antonio Pierce
like
last
Antonio
year,
Pierce. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
whole like when you have like basically like the devil is like the head coach, that
Mhm.
they're all
Mhm.
listen to the other guy because it's not McDaniels
Mhm.
or Dennis Allen,
Yeah. Nathaniel
right?
Hackett.
Right.
Like it was when
All I'm saying is like the Bears defense has been playing pretty well, all things considered, and then you let Brock Purdy, like who's been proven to be garbage, like cook you
yeah, it was just they just it was
at
too
home.
much responsibility. I don't think he was ready for, and it's like this is like they just feel like the whole thing's going to go off the rails, and I don't think this is a spot.
Do you think there's a possibility that the Vikings, knowing how notorious chokers they are, that if the Lions were to theoretically lose tomorrow, that they could theoretically choke and
That they would
bottle
choke this away.
they would bottle it.
That would be very funny. Um, but I'll hold off on that until maybe I make some decisions financially. I'll take Minnesota -6.5 at home.
I'm going to take Minnesota as well. I
It's an
do feel like
unfortunately lost Bears season. Not that it was supposed to be some great year, anyways, because you ruined it by keeping Eberflus to start the year. But there's just a lot of things that I don't feel like would have taken super intense changes to fix and make better. Um, anyways, next game we have are the Falcons and the Raiders on Monday night.
woof.
Falcons are 4-point favorites. Everyone's kind of loading up on them. They like need a win in the worst way, and I agree with it. Like it's just, it's everything's kind of going poorly for them. And this is what I predicted when I did a little thing. They were going to lose a bunch, then they were going to kind of run the table against what's not a hard schedule. And it starts here. So I'm taking Atlanta on the road, -4.
Desmond Ritter revenge game.
Mm-hmm.
No. I'll go with Atlanta. I will say this: if Kirk Cousins has another bad game, you theoretically may have a the team may riot
Mm-hmm.
because it's already been kind of coming out that some of the players on the Falcons want to see Penix because Kirk is banged up. He looks kind of washed up anyway. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you drafted Michael Penix as the future of the franchise anyway. We
Yeah.
discussed before how much the situation they created. And look, if Michael Penix, like I don't know, like they signed the wrong quarterback. They should just sign a bridge quarterback like
Yeah.
Jameis. And
Yeah, there
then
was no reason for it to be super high on like the price value or whatever. Because if you were going to do that, then you should have went and just got Lamar. You should have went and paid Lamar a few years ago when it was really looking like he was going to leave. Because I really think he wanted to, and the Falcons were like, "That's insane to me." They should have made the push and gotten him if they wanted to do this, but instead you did it with Kirk Cousins. I don't know. I don't get that. But alas, so you're taking Atlanta, and finally we have the Eagle game. Eagles are 5.5-point favorites at home against the Steelers. No George Pickens for Pittsburgh. I like the Eagles a lot in this game. I think with all the chatter, they're going to make it a point, not just like, oh, make sure AJ's involved, but like just make sure the passing game doesn't look brutal. Like tell Jalen, don't be stupid with the ball, but don't be like holding it until it's no one's even in the vicinity for you to throw it. Like throw with timing, throw with anticipation, trust your receivers,
I
trust
think
your
you're going to see
star
AJ and
receivers.
Devontae get open a lot because Joey Porter is the most penalized cornerback in football.
Yeah.
And what do you do to counteract when you're the most penalized cornerback in football?
Mm-hmm.
Play less off the ball or play less off the receiver. Try to make a play on the ball, not the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Porter Jr. was drafted to be a physical corner. Michael, am I correct?
You are correct.
And yeah, so listen, I don't expect him to be penalized once on Sunday because
That's
that's
how things
just
have been going.
that's how it's statistically going. The Eagles are opponents receive the least amount of penalties in the NFL, and I think Josie Jewell attempting to rip Grant Calcaterra's head off and not get penalized when there's a $3.7 million bet on the Eagles.
But
Hmm.
so we're both taking the
Yeah,
Eagles.
I think. Listen,
You're gonna have to throw it at least in theory because the Steelers they had their best run defense in football. They let up the least amount of rushing yards per game. Obviously, the Eagles lead the league in rushing yards per game. They might put you in a bind where you're gonna have to throw out a necessity, and I think they should want to come into this game wanting to throw a lot, and they might if they don't, they might be put in a box where they have to, and they're gonna have to succeed for it. And like you said, the guys are gonna be open. Jalen's just got to throw it. You just got to trust it, man. Like they're going to be there. You just got to trust it.
I do think though with the Steelers is that I'm trying to think when the Eagles have faced Arthur Smith offenses, they pretty much bottled up Atlanta in 2021 when he was their head coach. And is there another game I'm forgetting that we've played them?
What? Pittsburgh or
No,
Arthur Smith? You mean?
Arthur Smith.
Um,
Yeah,
was he around in 2018? The Titans? I don't remember.
I think he might have because
They
that
didn't.
was that was the year did they make the switch to Tannehill?
Not 18. I think
It was
that
19,
was
wasn't it?
Arthur Smith. Let's take a quick gander at Arthur Smith's coaching. Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator this year, Falcons head coach from 2021 to 2023. He was the Titans tight end coach in 2018. Was the Titans OC in 2019 and 2020.
Oh wow, he was a tight ends coach. Is that why he loves like three tight ends every play?
I mean, he's been the Titans. He was the assistant Titans head coach, and then the assistant tight ends coach, and then the regular tight ends coach in Tennessee. Interesting little resume this guy's got here. Anyways, yeah, I trust Fangio to kind of handle it. No Pickens as well. Like
Oh, Russell Wilson has kind of historically struggled against Vic Fangio.
but he has
Eagles have never
historically.
beaten Russell Wilson before.
Yeah, I'd like to see them kill him this week for sure. That would do a lot of healing for me. I think that would mean a lot.
I mean, so like, do you think is I haven't heard any chatter of Russ being the comeback player of the year because I think he does fulfill the criteria of a comeback player. In other words, you came back from sucking when you used to be
Well, I
great.
think they stopped. I think they're trying to make it an injury related
Oh,
thing now. I think they wanted to fix that because the favorite is I think the favorite right now is Burrow because he was like I guess hurt at the end of the
his
year.
hand exploded last
Right.
year in a
So I
game.
think it's Burrow is the favorite, and it's like Kirk was the guy if he didn't start doing what he's been doing the last month. And maybe if he
True.
keeps up for the last 4 games and they win the division, maybe they give it to him anyways. But we will see. Excited for tomorrow. Should be a good day of football. And yeah, that's it.
I agree. Everybody, thank you for tuning into our show. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I guess run some errands because there's no college.
It's cold. It is cold. Well, you have Army Navy today.
No,
Army Navy.
that's tradition game, big game, but you're not getting the full college slate. So
No. Yeah.
you know,
have a nice productive Saturday.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the TheP-LotPod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.